Hi guys, I'm Kesha. Welcome to our coffee times to talk about horror. And you know the drill, you know why we're here. We're here to talk about the books that are coming out that are thrillers and horror for the month of September.
It's coffee time!
When I started doing the September list, I was like, oh, there's a lot of books coming out in September. And then at some point I realized that the list was getting so long. And I think it's the longest list I have compiled so far. And the list ended up having 61 books. That is like a lot. Maybe too much. But I also didn't want to cut off any books, like exclude any books from this list, because maybe I'm gonna exactly remove the ones that some people are really excited about. So instead of just chopping the list, I decided to split this video into two different videos because I also don't want to overwhelm you. I don't want to have a full 1 hour video of new releases. So I'm gonna do this in two videos, and the first video is gonna have 30 books, the second video is gonna have 31 books. That's a little bit more manageable. And also, you guys, if you need to take notes, at least you're not gonna end up already with a huge list because there is so many things coming out in September. So let's get to the list, and you guys know I do this in publication order. I take the publication dates mostly from Goodreads. The publication dates, of course, can be different depending on your country, so keep that in mind, but at least you're aware that these books exist. We're going to kickstart our list with a middle grade horror book called Broken Dolls, and it is by Ali Malinenko. So we welcome always middle grade books in this channel. I really enjoy reading them. They are such a good, nice palate cleanser, especially when I'm reading a lot of disturbing books. So this one sounds really good because I also love creepy dolls. We follow Kay. She has selective mutism, and especially the death of her grandfather has deeply affected her, and we see that after that her behavior starts to change a little bit. They decide to spend the summer renovating the house, and you know, everything is going well until her little sister Holly starts to find dolls. They're buried in the backyard, they're stuffed in the walls, they're in the closets, and Kay knows that these dolls are not normal. They have a very creepy way of smiling, and she has the feeling that these dolls are whispering things to her. So this is a middle grade that sounds perfect for me because, like I said, I love creepy dolls. Let's go to adult horror thriller. We have The Mean Ones by Tatiana Schulte-Bonn. Sadie hears talking dead animals, and she also hears a male voice inside of her head, and her therapist is like, that's just part of your PTSD, because she was hiding under a bed while her friends were being slaughtered. But those murders happened 17 years ago when her name was Sabrina. Now she has changed her name to Sadie and is now 29 years old. She has a regular job, she has a regular relationship, you know, a boyfriend. Like, she's trying to live a very normal life. Her boyfriend Lucas has the idea to go to like a weekend getaway together to a cabin in the woods, and when Sadie gets there she realizes that the voices in her head and everything she can hear and see starts to get worse and worse. So I love that. I love when people go to like isolated settings and things escalate and they don't know what's going on, especially when it's something like this one that seems to be a little bit psychological, because a lot of it might be inside of Sadie's brain. So this sounds like a lot of fun. Next we have another movie adaptation. So basically they're adapting a lot of classic horror movies into books, and I'm here for it. And this time we have The Toxic Avenger, and it's gonna be adapted by Adam Caesar, which we all know from Clown in a Cornfield. The movie is now out as well, and I'm really excited for this one. I think The Toxic Avenger is such a fun movie. The movie basically follows a janitor, and some jackasses just push him into a pile of toxic waste, and he becomes a toxic avenger and of course seeks revenge of those that have wronged him. If you've never seen the movie, I mean, it's very campy, not gonna lie, but you feel free to watch it. I think it's fun. But I'm so excited about all of these like classic horror movies that are being adapted now into books, because now I can also have these classics as books and read them, and they're probably going to add a lot to the story, because we all know in movies sometimes you cannot expand as much on the story or character depth. So I'm really excited to read these new books that are coming out based on movies. Next we have a YA thriller, Dark Academia, and it is called When We Were Monsters by Jennifer Niven. This is a psychological thriller about a dead teacher at a boarding school. Sounds like a lot of fun already to me. Boarding schools, count me in. We are at an elite boarding school, as in most cases, and 8 students have been selected for a very special program. These 8 students have a very enigmatic tutor that is guiding them through this special program. And the thing about this special program is that they're going to be eliminated from the program one by one. So only the most ambitious, the best student is the one that is going to prevail. And I also love this premise. I love when there is some sort of game, some sort of thing that they have to achieve, and if not, they're gonna be eliminated. This always opens up the room for betrayal and secrets, and it's always fun. Next we have Frankenstein's Monster by J.S. Barnes. And this is supposed to be a sequel to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, so I'm really intrigued about this, and I have been looking for an excuse to reread Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, which I probably should do during Gothtober because I've been really wanting to do it, and I got a beautiful copy not long ago, so I might need to. This is the same author that also wrote Dracula's Child, which is also based, it's kind of like a sequel of a classic horror book, so I think that's kind of his thing. This one is going to follow up straight where Mary Shelley's left Frankenstein, and it's going to explore again experiments, life and death, mortality. We're gonna have new mysteries, so this sounds great to me. And yeah, I think I need to do a reread of Frankenstein first and then get to this one. Next we have a horror thriller called Breathe In, Bleed Out by Brian Macaulay, which you probably know because he wrote this beautiful Christmas novella, Candy Cane Kills and Candy Cane Kills Again. So I loved both of those. They are very gruesome, very gory, so hopefully this one is too. So Hannah has been struggling since losing her fiance. They were on a wilderness trip together and Ben mysteriously died. Hannah doesn't really want to talk much about what happened that day, but she still has a lot of nightmares that are kind of ruining her life. She cannot shake off the feeling, that there's ghosts around her. She cannot just get rid of those ghosts from the past and probably the guilt of, losing her fiance. And then her friends group, they get an invitation to go to kind of a beautiful retreat at Joshua Tree, and Hannah is kind of nah, I don't think I want to go, but they end up convincing her to go and join them. It's a retreat where you have a guru, they're doing yoga, all of those bits, and I can't wait to see this going to hell. Yes, as you guessed it, we're gonna have a killer that is picking the guests from the retreat one by one, so we are returning to kind of the slasher format, I guess, which Candy Cane Kills was a slasher, so I'm here for it because if we know the author so far, it's going to be bloody, it's gonna be gory. Next we have a YA horror called The Deep Well, and this is by Laura Creedle. When April was 5, she heard a voice coming out of a well that told her to fly. April was the only survivor of a massacre in the Copperton mine, and everybody in town kind of think that she is evil now for some reason, and she is kind of an outcast now, and the story of the massacre has become in this town kind of an urban legend, and everybody believes that when April turns 16, she's gonna get some sort of power, something evil is gonna happen. April has a lot of questions about what happened that night because obviously she was a kid instead of a mine, and she wants to know exactly what happened to her family and everybody that perished that night, so she starts to investigate to figure out what happened in her childhood. And obviously she doesn't really want to go into the mine again, but she might have to if she wants to get answers. Next we have a short horror story compilation that has been curated by Ellen Datlow, and it is called Night and Day, Dreadful Dark, Tales of Nighttime, Horror Merciless Sun, Tales of Daylight Horror. And if I understand this correctly, this book is gonna have 2 sections. So you're gonna get some stories that are kind of night horrors, and other ones are going to be day horrors. So this sounds very, very interesting. Especially I would be curious to read the one about the day horrors, because we all know that horror tends to work better at night. It's just easier to do a night setting when you have a horror story. There are some books and some movies that have achieved to really creep you out during the day. But it is so much easier to achieve that through shadows and nighttime. So I'll be really curious to read the stories about the day. The next book is a non-fiction, and I have been lately finding some really interesting non-fiction books that are related to horror, so I wanted to mention them because maybe some people, same as me, are interested to read some non-fiction horror books. And the first one that I have today for you is Screaming and Conjuring: The Resurrection and Unstoppable Rise of the Modern Horror Movie. This is by Clark Collins, and it kind of explores the evolution and the resurrection of horror that started in 1996 with Scream up to The Conjuring in 2013. It does talk about how after Wes Craven's Scream we got many other horror movies that were really successful and kind of changed the course of horror movies, like The Blair Witch Project, The Sixth Sense, Final Destination. They even include Pan's Labyrinth, which is one of my favorite movies of all times. So Hostel, like so many movies that started to change the game, especially also when The Conjuring came out, it was like a really big hit. I'm really excited about this one because anything that combines books and horror movies, I'm here for. The next horror book we have is called Shit Show, and it is by Chris Panettiere. After his mother is diagnosed with dementia, our main character desperately needs a job, and he finds a potential job that he could do, but that is working for a potty company. He needs a job that is basically offering him flexible hours and that also offers him a vehicle. So this is kind of like a job that sucks, but he kind of needs in order to also be able to take care of his mom. Everything is going well until people start disappearing in these porta potties, and pieces of humans, like body parts, start to appear inside of them. So sounds like not the best way to go inside of one of these potty toilet things, portable things. Probably not the best way to go. Next we have a horror thriller called Spider to the Fly by J.H. Marquardt. And I like this one because we follow a true crime specialist that is helping to catch a killer. Ellie starts to become obsessed with true crime and serial killers when she sees a picture of a victim from a serial killer that looks exactly like her. It's obviously not her because she's alive, but it could have been her. So she writes a book about it and she becomes famous, and she is now a true crime specialist. So she wrote this book about this specific serial killer, and 4 years later they still have not caught him, and the police asks Ellie for help to help catch this killer because obviously she has been investigating the case, she knows a lot about it. You know, mystery thrillers about serial killers and true crime is nothing new, but it's something that I'm always happy to read. Next we have a horror fantasy book, and it's called A Blood as Bright as the Moon by Andrea Morstabilini. And we do have here a vampire, so call me intrigued. Anything with vampires, I'm willing to give it a chance. It's a vampire that is kind of torn between worlds, and it's also being hunted by a secret society. That sounds like fun to me. We follow Ambrose, who is a young vampire, and he lives with a clan, and they are trying to hide from people that are hunting them. And because the vampires are being hunted, they kind of come up with a plan. I mean, not Ambrose, he doesn't like this plan, but kind of like the leader of the clan comes with a plan to relocate the vampires to the moon, which sounds a little bit crazy, but this is fantasy, so anything goes. I mean, we're also talking about vampires, not gonna lie. Realism is already off the window, but this sounds like something I've never heard of before. And of course you have on the other side the secret society that is trying to get to the vampires and kill them before they flee. Next we have a horror novella called The Last Way by Cameron L. Mitchell. We follow a young boy in a small town that is planning to kill his father. So he's coming up with all of the possible ways that he could kill his father and trying to figure out which is the best way to kill his father and get away with it. The possibilities are endless, but he needs to choose carefully if he wants, obviously, not to get caught. So the boy starts to get more and more desperate as he plans different ways to kill the father. And yeah, I'm guessing this book is going to be quite intense. It's a horror novella, but you know, just the idea of somebody wanting to kill their own dad. I don't know if the dad did anything to this kid or not, but the fact that it's a young boy coming up with ideas of how he could kill his father is quite of a dark theme, you know. We go back to YA horror, and this one I'm really excited about because it takes place in Halloween 1999. So this book is called Gorman's House by T.T. Madden. Danny, Kennedy, and Jason are determined to find the location of the so-called Gorman house, and this is kind of like a horror attraction, kind of like a house that you can enter, and if you complete the house, basically you win a prize, but nobody has been able to do it. I mean, traveling haunted attractions, record shows that you cannot trust these places, and if you go in, you might never go out again. This is one that I'm really excited about because I love this kind of like haunted houses where it's not just like a regular supernatural haunted house, but it's kind of like an attraction that people can go into, so there's going to be possibly human evil involved here, so I'm really excited. Next we have more horror stories. We have Roots of My Fears by Ramsey Campbell. I mean, Ramsey Campbell, no need to explain, this guy has been writing books for some time. Everybody's probably familiar with his name. So these are some new short horror stories. This anthology explores heritage and horrors of things that have been passed down from generation to generation. And we do have more short horror stories. I think also kind of thinking already of Halloween, people know that we all love to have some short horror story options. And this one is called A Quiet Taste, and it is by Clay McLeod Chapman. Now, I have enjoyed most of his books, some more than others. Some might be more of a hit, more of a miss for me, but I'm intrigued to read short stories by him. If you have read anything by Clay McLeod Chapman, you probably know that his writing style is very different and unique. So these stories are probably going to be kind of weird. They're probably going to have a little bit of humor in them as well, but I'm excited because, like I said, his full-length novels, some of them have worked better for me than others, but I'm intrigued about this short horror story compilation. We're going back to adult horror, and we have The Burial Tide by Neil Sharpson. And this one takes inspiration from Irish folklore. We are on an eerie, quiet island on the coast of Ireland, and a woman basically claws her way out of her grave. She comes back, even though people in town are not very happy that she's coming back, but she has no recollection of her death. Of course, in this island, we all know that there is a terrible secret that everybody is hiding, and I'm guessing this is going to be very heavy folk horror, so I don't know if they have any sort of like god that they have to do sacrifices for, or what is it going to be about exactly, if there is a monster in the picture. But if you love folk horror, this book might be for you. Next we have more horror with vampires, so another one really interesting for me. This one is called Coffin Moon by Keith Rosson. We are in 1975 and we have a man, a veteran, returning from Vietnam, and he is together with his niece, and they hunt and are being hunted by vampires. So this sounds perfect to me. Basically the thing is that the veteran did something to piss off the vampires, and now the vampires want revenge, and now we are in a pickle. This is a mess, and we have two different families. We have the veteran, his niece, you know, the family there. We have the vampires, their family, their clan. So also it's set in 1975, which I love the setting as well. And it's basically a story about what happens when, you know, violence and vengeance is all we can think of, and what happens to us when we are driven by that. Moving on to a horror gothic, we have The Hunting of William Thorne by Ben Alderson. They say this is The Notebook mixed with The Haunting of Hill House. That's a very weird mix, but I think they say this because of the timelines. It is like a split timeline story, and we are in a haunted English manor. William has all his life planned out. He knows how everything is gonna go, but then one day he returns home a bit too early. He finds his boyfriend with someone else, and he ends up kicking out of the house his boyfriend Archie. And unfortunately that night Archie dies in a car accident as he is driving away from there. So obviously William feels guilty. And William is also very surprised to know that he has been left in a will, a manor, an English manor. When he gets there, he realizes the manor is not in the best shape. The villagers kind of want him gone. Like, something is really off in this place. And not only the villagers want him gone, there's probably some ghosts inside of this manor that are gonna do whatever they can to scare him away. Next we have a book that is adult horror, and it is also about cults. And we have House of Idol by Delilah S. Dawson. Black Idol is one of the most popular bands in the world, and our main character, which is a singer-songwriter, is offered to join kind of like a program that this band offers. And that girl is Angelina, and when she's offered to go to this luxury compound that is being paid for by this famous band, she's like all over the moon. But when she gets there, she realizes things are not actually as they seem, and there are strange things happening in this place. There are screaming horses, there are mysterious figures that are being seen in the middle of the night. There's also recurring dreams that are basically nightmares. But then also on top of that, people start to go missing. And we all know in horror, when people start to go missing, that's basically your cue to leave. So yeah, this is another one that sounds quite interesting, because isolated setting with people that probably don't know each other because they've all been invited to this compound by this band, and what's going on here. Next we have a horror fantasy called The Macabre, and this is by Kosoko Jackson. We follow a struggling painter called Louis, and he has always struggled with his art because for the most part he just feels compelled to paint. He doesn't have much of a decision on what he puts on the canvas. And he's really shocked when the British Museum kind of shows interest in his paintings and wants him to, you know, give them the paintings for a show. He does accept the invitation because struggling painter, but he knows that he has no control over his paintings. He knows there's some sort of like something magical with them, something tragic. There's some sort of power in his paintings that he cannot define. It's kind of like a curse, but he also cannot stop himself from producing these paintings. This sounds like a very interesting concept. I love art and I love going to museums, and there are not too many horror books out there that take place at museums or that are around art. I think there are probably more movies that deal with museums and with some art cursed objects than books, so this is one that feels very unique. Next we have the new horror adult series by Eric LaRocca. He's starting a new series called Burnt Sparrow series, and the first book is already coming out, and it's called We Are Always Tender with Our Dead. We are in a small town called Burnt Sparrow, and one day the lives of the residents will change forever. On Christmas morning, they received the visit of 3 faceless individuals, entities, that perform some really gruesome act of violence. And then we follow the town after the events and how they have to recover and confront their lives and what happened to them, the tragedy. I don't know exactly what's gonna go on. Like, I don't know what's that violent act that they commit and how that affected the community, but if we have a small town setting, isolated again, where something tragic happens and it alters the whole town, that's something that I love to explore because it allows you to do a lot of character development in a book, and that's something that I'm always down for. The next one is a horror gothic, and it's one that I have been anticipated for so long, and that is Play Nice by Rachel Harrison. You guys know I have become a Rachel Harrison fan, and I'm reading everything by her. This is her new book coming out. Love the cover, have it pre-ordered, can't wait. Cleo is a stylist and an influencer, and she claims that her childhood home was haunted. That's not the way that her family, like her sister and everybody, remembers it, but she says that the house was not exactly haunted, it was possessed by a demon, and she is sure of it. She even wrote a book about it. When the mom dies, the house basically is offered to the 2 sisters, and Cleo sees an opportunity to obviously do content for her business, but also she wants to fix the house. I'm really excited about this one. I think it's the first time that Rachel Harrison is doing a book on a haunted house, and it's something that has been done so many times before. But if I know something from Rachel's books, is that you can expect the unexpected. There's probably going to be a very different way for her to tell a haunted house story. We're still talking about adult horror. We have They Fear Not Men in the Woods by Gretchen McNeil. 7 years ago, Jen decided to leave her hometown. The reason was that her father, who was the forest ranger, and he was always advocating for nature and old trees, he just simply vanished. She vowed never to return, but then one day, obviously, she gets a text message from her mom that tells her that her father's remains have been found. So now she has to return. And it's because, you know, when somebody goes missing, you kind of still have that hope that they are alive, but if you find the remains, then it's kind of like final. So Jen really wants to know, she wants to discover what happened to her dad. The next horror book I would like to talk to you about is You Weren't Meant to Be Human by Andrew Joseph White. They say this book is Alien meets Midsommar, which that's a very, very, very interesting mix. There are some hives with fresh worms and flies that are in the Appalachian Trail, and these hives basically want to make a deal with humans. They want bodies to eat, you know, to feed on them, and they want to offer humans a fresh start. It's obviously an offer that a lot of humans cannot refuse, because I'm sure a lot of people would really be interested to make a deal in order to get a fresh start. Obviously, once you start making deals with this hive, they are going to have more and more demands, and this book, it's kind of like gory, you know. I think it's gonna have body horror in it as well, and because we're dealing here with hives and worms and flies, it might be quite disgusting as well. So just keep that in mind. And we have another non-fiction here because it sounded really good, so I wanted to include it in the list, and it's called Ghosted: A Social History of Ghost Hunting and Why We Keep Looking by Alice Vernon, which I think is really interesting because, yeah, why do we keep looking for ghosts? Why do we keep poking? So this one explores ghost hunting and why people are so fascinated by it, all of the paranormal investigations. There are huge channels on YouTube that do this as well. Like, why are we so interested in it? Why are we so intrigued? Why do we want to find ghosts? Like, why do we want to do that? You know, it's something that I think everybody is always wondering about. Are there ghosts living with us? Are some sort of entities, energies around us that we cannot see? Why do we want to do this? Is to process grief? Is some people do it maybe because they just want to be YouTubers and this is something popular? Is it because we want answers to see if there is something after death? So this one sounds really interesting, to be honest, and as somebody that, you know, I don't watch those paranormal shows because they're not really for me. I don't find them that interesting. I'm more of a true crime girly. But I know a lot of people really love those documentaries and those YouTube channels, so maybe this book would be really interesting for you guys. Next we have a YA book that I'm really excited about, and it is high on my priority list. It's called They Own the Night by Amy McCaw, and it is about vampires. Now, Amy is the author of Mina and the Undead, which is a trilogy about vampires and slayers, which is a great trilogy, especially if you love Buffy. You're gonna love that trilogy. And because she has such a love for vampires, of course, she had to write more vampire books, which I'll take any day. And this one sounds fantastic. This is a 1980s Dracula retelling. Like, I'm already sold. Also this cover, yes please. Mia and Johnny have always been there for each other, especially after their dad was discovered to be a serial killer. Now their father is serving a life sentence after murdering 13 people. Mia is now studying in a small university, and she basically just tries to go through life with sarcasm, writing horror, and also she has kind of like a sort of an illegal radio where she talks about true crime. And then we have Johnny, which is the sensitive brother and is trying to keep his sister out of trouble. Unfortunately, Johnny leaves Mia alone because he gets a very good offer to interview someone that he thinks is really good for his career. So he goes to do this interview, and that's when Mina realizes that she's stuck now in this university and people are turning up dead. So we're gonna follow these two siblings, which I think is fantastic to have the different POV of two very different siblings that, even though they share the same background, probably make very different decisions, and they're gonna be involved in a mystery. And as we all know, of course, this book is inspired by Dracula, so there's going to be vampires, there's gonna be blood. Another book that I'm really excited about because I've read several books by Kat Ellis and enjoy them is the new Kat Ellis book, and it is called The Devouring Light. This is YA horror, and I have seen that it's coming out, at least here it's supposed to be able to be shipped in September already, and the release date is September, but I have seen other places where the release date is October, so I'm unsure. Maybe it depends on where you live. We follow Hayden and her rival Deacon, and they are on the way to a festival with their bands, but they end up stranded and they're really pissed that they have to miss the festival, but something else is gonna happen that is gonna be much worse. They are stranded in the swamplands and they are trying to figure out how to get out of there when they stumble upon a decaying house, an abandoned house. They decide to go into the house because there is an impending storm coming and they want to at least stay safe somewhere while they wait, maybe for daylight, maybe for somebody to come and rescue them. But of course, we all know what's gonna happen. Probably some of them are gonna get killed. There's something inside of this house. Is it really abandoned? And like I said, I've really enjoyed the other Kat Ellis books that I have read so far, so I'm excited for this one. And another queen of YA thrillers and YA horrors is Cynthia Murphy, and her new book is coming out in September as well, which I'm really excited about. This one is called Keep Your Enemies Close, and it is a dark academia thriller. Chloe is on top of the world at Morton Academy. Everything is going great, but that is until her best friend betrays her. And then Chloe discovers a book called Book of Crime and Punishment, which basically depicts all of the misdemeanors, all of the little crimes that the students have committed, and the fitting kind of punishment for them. And she starts to realize that some of these small crimes might actually be crimes explaining people that have been murdered, and this might be connected to a club that she was a member of, so she starts to investigate this. It sounds very much dark academia thriller, and I like the vibes of this book. I do like all of Cynthia Murphy's books. I have read them all so far. I tried to get an arc of this one, but I couldn't, so I have been waiting patiently, and my waiting is almost finally over. The next book is book number 2 on a series, and it is said to be for 11 years up, so this might be something between middle grade and YA, and it is a book called The Wintermoor Lights by Dan Smith and Luke Brooks, and it is part of the Night House Files. I read the first one and I really enjoyed it, and this is now a different case. So it's kind of like the X-Files, where you have a case per book and they kind of look into something that is a little bit sci-fi, a little bit horror, like a mystery that needs to be solved. The first book was about a building, an apartment building, where somebody returned with carrying some sort of virus that started to spread around the building, and this one has a similar concept. There are some strange lights in Wintermoor, and the teenagers that come in contact with these lights start to act strangely, so something is affecting them. They appear to be in some sort of trance, and they start to talk about being chosen. So the adults think that is some sort of like mass hysteria. So we were gonna have to solve the mystery of what is happening with the teenagers. Why did these lights affect them so much? Also, why only the teenagers were affected. So I like these books. They're very short, fast-paced, and they are kind of like a modern X-Files, but for younger readers. And that was, you guys, all the 30 books for part 1 of this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you found some new books that you're really interested about. As you have seen, there's many authors releasing books this month that I really need, like Amy McCall, Cynthia Murphy, Kat Ellis, we have Rachel Harrison, like just so many. My bank account in September is gonna cry and go to a corner because there's a lot of things coming out that I definitely need. So sorry about that, but also yay, exciting new books that we all want to read. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all, of course, in part 2. So thank you guys as always so much for watching, and I hope to see you all, as always, in our next coffee time. Bye!